I was single, before Bonnie and I had gotten married, I had a roommate. We lived in Summerville, South Carolina. I was a youth pastor at a church there locally, and so was my roommate at a different church. And we didn't have a washer and dryer, so we did our laundry at the local laundromat, which was just down the street from the house that we rented. And one Saturday morning, I got up early and took my laundry up to the laundromat. And I was sitting in there while the laundry was just spinning in the washer there. And another gentleman walked in on the other side of the laundromat and sat down, and he started to wait on his laundry after he had put it in there. And I am reading a book. And I don't know if you've ever had this happen to you, but sometimes you just feel that sense that God is prompting you to speak to someone, to share your faith with someone. And I don't know if you've ever had it happen to you that when God prompts you to share your faith with someone, you don't quite feel courageous enough to do it. You don't quite feel brave enough to do it. And so you resist a little bit. Well, I felt that prompting that morning, just myself and this other guy in the laundromat, and I resisted. He looked friendly enough. I just didn't feel courageous enough to get up and walk over and begin a conversation for the express purpose of sharing my faith. I resisted, and so washed my laundry and put it in the dryer, dried the laundry the whole time, just resisting God on this prompting that I felt to go share my faith with this guy. And he was going through doing his laundry as well. And so I loaded everything up after I'd folded it and put it in my car, and I started to leave. And just as I started to back out of the parking lot, I just felt that overwhelming pressure that man, I can't believe that you're about to drive away from here and not share your faith with this guy when you clearly feel God, initiating that conversation in your heart. And so I pulled back forward and I started to get out of the car, and you're going to think I'm crazy, but just man, I was struggling with that thing. And so the weak side of me won, and I closed the door back and I put the car in reverse and I backed up to the end of the driveway. Well, by this time the guy had walked out of the laundromat and he was putting his things in his car, and I'm pretty sure that he had seen me back up to the end of the driveway and then come back to the parking place. Well, I put it in reverse and I backed out to the edge of the parking lot again. And man, I just felt tremendous guilt for not doing what I knew God was prompting me to do. So I put the car back in drive, pulled back forward. Here I am going back and forth in this parking lot with this guy standing out there loading his laundry in his car. And I know he's watching me. And I know he's thinking, this guy's crazy. So what could make him more nervous than not only watching this nut going back and forth in his car in the laundromat parking lot, but finally the courageous part of me won over, and I decided to be obedient. So I got out of my car and I started to walk towards him. So I can only imagine what this guy was thinking. What is this crazy guy doing? Driving his car back and forth in the parking lot. Now he's coming at me. And so I'm walking towards this guy with every intention of, as casually and normally at this point as possible, just beginning a conversation with him in such a way that I might be able to share my faith. Well, I was nervous and I was self-conscious because I knew that I had been, acting sort of weird. And so I got up to this gentleman in the parking lot there and I said hello to him. I said good morning to him. And he said, "Sir, let me ask you a question." Completely caught me off guard. He said, "Do you know of any churches in the area that offer any kind of counseling or something like that? I'm having some struggles in my family, and I feel like I don't have anywhere to turn, and the only thing that I can think of is that I might be helpful to talk to somebody at a church about it." And I stood there in that parking lot at that moment, overwhelmed with gratefulness to God that He provided me this opportunity to talk to this man about faith. Not just about sharing my faith, about my story with God, with Him, but here was this appointment that God had made for me in this parking lot at this laundromat with this man, and I almost missed it. I almost missed it because I wasn't courageous enough to be obedient. I wonder how many opportunities we miss on a daily basis to be obedient to God and have conversations that He has placed intentionally in our path, whether it be to share our faith with someone, to share our heart's story about our relationship with God, or just to be an encouragement. I wonder how many opportunities we miss. Number one, because we don't have the spiritual awareness. We've not woken up in the morning and prepared our heart for what God might be putting in our path on that day. And so we just miss opportunities because our minds are distracted with the things of the world and not the things of God. And so we miss those opportunities because of that. But number two, I wonder how many opportunities we miss simply because we don't have the boldness to be obedient to God and to just walk across the room and have a conversation with the person that God has placed in our path on that day. Well, what's the answer? What is the solution? And I think that the answer is prayer on our part. I think that waking up in the morning and approaching each day with prayer and saying, God, would you give me the eyes of Jesus today to see the world around me with compassion and be able to recognize people who I might be able to speak to and encourage. And not only would you give me the eyes to be able to recognize those people and those opportunities, but would you give me the courage and the boldness to take those few steps across the room and to be able to have that conversation with a person. What I learned was that God is faithful and He's done the hard work. It's not as hard as we think it is. We just have to take those first few steps of obedience and then let God do what God does. And that is to take the small amount of effort and courage that we have and magnify it to work a miracle in someone's life. And He receives the glory. And that's what we're after. So what opportunity today is God going to put in your path that you might be obedient and courageous enough to take hold of and see God do something miraculous?